There was a time when she felt alive, but now it was like walking through fog, every step heavier than the last. She smiled for the world, but inside, everything was silent, hollow. Her name was Elena. Years ago she had dreams, a family, a future full of light. But when tragedy came, when she lost what mattered most, everything in her broke. She didn't cry anymore, not because she was strong, but because the tears had dried out. Nothing made sense, not work, not friends, not even the sunrise. And worst of all, she felt like God had stopped listening. But what she didn't know was that heaven had been silent not because it had forgotten her, but because it was preparing the exact moment that would change her forever. If you've ever felt like the silence is too much to bear, keep watching. This story might be the answer your soul has been waiting for. Every day felt like a copy of the last. Elena would wake up, look at the ceiling, and ask herself, why? Not why it happened, but why she was still here. She moved through life like a shadow. Work, groceries, bills, sleep, repeat. But not once did she feel alive. She stopped going to church, she stopped answering calls, she even stopped praying. Because deep down, she believed something cruel, that maybe God had already moved on from her. And if he had moved on, maybe she should too. But she didn't want revenge. She didn't want justice. She just wanted the pain to go away, even if that meant disappearing with it. In silence, she started writing goodbye letters. One for her sister, one for her mom, and one addressed to God. That night, she folded them neatly, left them on the table, and walked out into the cold. As her feet hit the pavement, Elena's mind raced back to what once was. She saw flashes of her son's laughter, the kitchen they used to bake in, his tiny hands reaching for her face. Then, the accident, the phone call, the hospital lights, the silence in the room when the doctor said, "I'm sorry." That was the moment time broke. Her world didn't just fall apart, it vanished. She remembered holding his favorite blanket every night, hoping for a sign, a dream, a whisper, anything. But heaven had gone quiet, and now she was done waiting. She walked aimlessly through the empty streets, feeling like a ghost in her own life. It wasn't suicide she wanted, it was just peace. And if she couldn't find it here, maybe, just maybe, she could find it on the other side. She reached the edge of the city, a small park with broken benches and fading streetlights. She sat down, head in hands, whispering, "God, if you're still there, say something, anything." The wind blew, and then a child's voice answered. She stood up from the bench and kept walking. It had started to drizzle, and the city lights blurred through the tears in her eyes. A car honked. A dog barked. But Elena barely noticed. Her thoughts were louder than the world around her. Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind her. Light, soft, hesitant. She turned, and there, barely 7 years old, stood a little girl. Torn shoes, messy hair, but eyes. Eyes that looked like they'd seen eternity. The girl smiled, gently, as if she knew Elena. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't begging. She just looked calm, still. And then she said something. Just one sentence. One line that shattered the darkness inside Elena, like thunder breaking silence. "Moça, sabia que Deus ainda lembra de você?" "Ma'am, did you know God still remembers you?" Elena froze. Her heart pounded. It was as if heaven had spoken directly through this little stranger. Elena couldn't move. The words from that child echoed louder than anything she had heard in years. God still remembers you. She looked around. There was no one else. Just her, and the little girl, staring up with eyes full of peace. Tears she hadn't cried in a long time began to fall, not out of pain, but out of something she hadn't felt in so long. Hope. She fell to her knees on the sidewalk, hands shaking, and whispered through her sobs, "God, was that you? Was that really you?" The little girl knelt beside her, gently placed her hand on Elena's shoulder, and smiled. No more words, no preaching, no Bible, just presence. In that moment, the pain didn't disappear, but the numbness did. For the first time in years, Elena felt something real, a spark, a whisper of light inside the storm. Elena walked home slowly. Same streets, same noises, same cold, but something inside her wasn't the same. She was still hurting, but for the first time in years, she was also hoping. When she got home, The goodbye letters were still on the table. She looked at them, picked them up, and smiled softly. Not because life was perfect now, but because she had just remembered. She wasn't forgotten. She tore them up, one by one. Then she walked to the bookshelf and pulled out the dusty Bible that hadn't been touched in years. She opened it randomly, and her eyes landed on a verse that hit like thunder through her chest. "Fear not, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Isaiah 41:10. She fell to her knees, and this time, not from despair, but from awe, from relief, from the overwhelming feeling that God had never left her. The next morning, something felt different. Elena woke up before the alarm. For the first time in years, she opened her Bible instead of her phone. She didn't read it like a ritual. She read it like someone searching for breath underwater. The verses spoke louder now. It was as if every word had been waiting for her to return. She started journaling. Not perfect prayers, not poetic ones, just raw honesty, pain, gratitude, confusion, hope. She was still grieving, but now she wasn't drowning. She was healing. That week, she had an idea. What if she started a small support group for other women who had lost someone? At first, only 2 showed up, then 5. Within a month, there were 20. She didn't speak like a preacher. She spoke like someone who had walked through fire and made it out alive. She didn't teach doctrine. She offered presence. She listened. She cried. And through her, God touched others, quietly, powerfully. Elena couldn't stop thinking about the little girl, her face, her calm voice, that one sentence that cracked years of silence in her soul. She went back to the park the next day, and the next, and the next. She asked around. The local vendor, the old woman who fed pigeons, the man who swept the sidewalks. "Have you seen a little girl here? About 7 years old, brown eyes, worn shoes?" They all said the same thing. "No, I haven't seen any child here." She showed a drawing she made from memory. No one recognized her. Not even the nearby shelter or orphanage had any record of a child like that. It didn't make sense. How could someone so real just vanish? Then, one night while praying, a thought entered her mind. Not loud, not forced, just a quiet whisper in her spirit. Angels don't leave footprints. Tears filled her eyes. Maybe that child wasn't from this world. Maybe heaven had sent her. Just for one sentence. Just for one soul. Have you ever met someone who appeared at the perfect moment and then disappeared? Maybe. It wasn't random. Elena was no longer the woman who had walked through that rainy night. She still had scars, but now they shined. Not because the pain was gone, but because God was using them. She kept leading the support group. She spoke in community centers, churches, even schools. Not with flashy words, not with religious language, just her story, the one where she nearly gave up, until one sentence from a mysterious child reminded her, "God still remembers you." That sentence became her signature. She ended every speech, every message, every post with it. It became a spark that ignited healing in others. One day, after a gathering, a woman came up to her in tears. She whispered, "I was going to take my life tonight, until I heard your story." Elena hugged her tight, because she knew. She remembered that darkness, and now she was standing in the light, because a single voice had reminded her that she still mattered. If this story moved something inside of you, don't keep it to yourself. Someone you know might be silently praying for a sign. Share this. Be the sentence that saves a life. Years have passed. Elena still walks through that same park sometimes. She looks at the bench, the corner, the streetlight that flickers, but she never saw the child again. And yet, she sees her everywhere, in the woman who found hope in her story, in the young man who chose to live another day, in the broken mother who found peace after years of silence. Elena no longer searches for signs. She became one. That one sentence, "God still remembers you," became a movement, a mission, a lifeline. People began writing it on sticky notes and leaving them in hospital bathrooms, libraries, and on car windows. That one sentence, born from the mouth of a child no one could find, was now saving lives around the world. And Elena, she keeps going, keeps showing up, because she knows Sometimes, it doesn't take a sermon, or a miracle, or a second chance. Sometimes, all it takes is one sentence, from the right person, at the right moment, delivered by God Himself. If you're still breathing, then your story isn't over. Maybe you're not here by accident. Maybe this was your sentence, the one that lights up your soul.